He didn't growl. He didn't lunge. He just stopped believing anyone would stay. Russo had been tied to that fence for days with a sign that said he bites, and every single person who read it kept walking. After a while, he stopped watching them leave. He curled up small, nose tucked in, the rope pulling at his neck every time he shifted. He never barked. He never lunged. He just waited. The sign said he was dangerous, but nobody stopped to ask. Dangerous to who, exactly? The fence stood at the edge of a dirt parking lot on the outskirts of a small town in rural Georgia. It was the kind of place where people drive through without stopping, a forgotten in-between. A gas station on one side, a shuttered hardware store on the other, and in the middle of all that ordinary, a mid-sized dog with a brindle coat and tired eyes knotted to the chain link with a blue nylon rope that had been looped twice around so he couldn't get far. The cardboard sign had been taped to the fence with duct tape. Someone had written it with a black marker, the letters uneven, like they were in a hurry. His name is Russo. He bites. That was it. No phone number, no explanation, no goodbye. Just a warning, left behind like a disclaimer. For 3 days, people came and went. A woman walking her kids to the gas station read the sign and steered her children wide around him. A man filling up his truck glanced over, squinted at the cardboard, and went back to watching the pump. A teenager on a bike slowed down, stared at Russo for a second, then pedaled faster. Nobody called animal control. Nobody called a rescue. Nobody left water, because the sign said he bites, and that was enough. Russo spent most of those days in the same position, curled with his back against the fence post, nose buried between his front legs. He didn't watch the road anymore. He didn't lift his head when cars pulled in. He had done that on day 1, and day 2, and by day 3 he had learned that lifting his head led to nothing. So he stopped. That's the part that doesn't make the news. The part that doesn't get photographed. The moment when a dog decides that hoping is more exhausting than giving up. Delphine was 34, drove a faded green pickup, and had spent the last 6 years volunteering with a small independent rescue out of Macon. She wasn't supposed to take the long way home that Thursday. She'd told herself she'd stop doing that, stopping for every dog she saw, every cat near a dumpster, every animal that looked like it was waiting for someone who wasn't coming. But she took the long way anyway. She spotted the blue rope first. She pulled over without thinking, parked halfway in the lot, left the engine running. She read the sign from a distance, then walked closer and read it again. She stood there for a moment, not moving, just watching Russo breathe. He hadn't lifted his head. She crouched down about 10 feet away. She didn't reach for him. She didn't call to him. She just got low and stayed quiet. Russo opened one eye. He didn't move, didn't shift his weight, just looked at her with that one eye like he was deciding whether it was even worth the effort. Delphine sat down on the gravel. She wasn't going anywhere. It took 12 minutes before Russo lifted his head fully. She counted. She had that habit from years of working with shutting down dogs, counting time, not pushing it. He looked at her. His ears were low, his body still pressed against the fence. His tail didn't wag. It barely moved at all, just a small, uncertain sweep against the dirt. The kind of movement that means, I want to trust this, but I don't know if I'm allowed to. Delphine didn't move any closer. She let the silence sit between them. After another few minutes, Russo pushed himself up, slowly, like everything ached. He stood there, head low, rope taut, and looked at her with both eyes now. She extended one hand toward the ground, not at him, just near him, a presence rather than a reach. He took one step, just one, but it was his.
Now, more than just feeling the scene, it's worth understanding what it reveals.
What Russo was showing wasn't aggression. It was shutdown, a documented stress response in dogs that have been overwhelmed for too long. When a dog's nervous system has absorbed repeated fear, uncertainty, or isolation without relief, it eventually stops responding outwardly. The dog goes quiet, goes still. It looks like calm. It is not calm. It's a system that has run out of options. The tail sweep Rousseau offered, low, slow, ambiguous, was a calming signal, a non-threatening gesture that dogs use to communicate they mean no harm. He wasn't indifferent to Delphine. He was scanning her for safety and offering the quietest possible signal that he wasn't a threat. The sign said, "He bites." Shutdown dogs rarely do.
What looks like hesitation is actually communication. Understanding the dog changes everything.
Delphine didn't try to untie him that day. She went to the gas station, bought 2 bottles of water and a pack of cheese crackers, the only food she could find, and came back. She poured water into her cupped hand and held it out. Rousseau looked at it for a long moment. Then he drank. She drove home that night without him, which felt wrong in every possible way. But she made calls. She reached out to her contact at a small foster network in the area. She posted his photo, just the one she'd taken from a distance, his silhouette against the chain link, with a simple caption, "He's still there. He's not dangerous. He's just been left." She went back the next morning before sunrise. He was still there. But this time, when her headlights swept across the lot, he lifted his head before she even got out of the truck. Delphine got him out of the rope on a Friday. No drama. No resistance. She sat with him for 20 minutes first, then moved slowly to the fence, and he let her work the knot loose without pulling back. The rope fell. He stood there for a second like he wasn't sure what the absence of pressure on his neck meant. Then he shook himself off, the full body shake, head to tail, the kind dogs do when they're releasing tension. She drove him to a vet an hour away, a woman named Dr. Okafor, who had worked with the rescue network before. Rousseau sat in the passenger seat the entire ride, pressed against the door, watching the road go by. He didn't try to bite anyone. Not when Dr. Okafor examined him. Not when the vet tech took his temperature. Not when they drew blood. He was stiff and uncertain, but he was quiet, and when things felt like too much, he turned his head away. A calming signal. A request for space, not a warning. Dr. Okafor looked at Delphine over Rousseau's back and said, "Whoever wrote that sign didn't know this dog." Delphine thought, or they knew him just well enough to be afraid of something they created. Rousseau was around 4 years old, the vet estimated. Brindle coat, medium build, likely a mixed breed. Some boxer in there, maybe some Labrador. The kind of mix that nobody plans for and everybody underestimates. He was underweight. His paws were rough. There was an old scar along his left shoulder that had healed without care. He wasn't a dangerous dog. He was a dog that had lived without enough of anything: space, stability, understanding, patience, and had learned to manage that the only way he knew how. Which, for Rousseau, meant going internal, pulling back. Disappearing inside himself where nothing could reach him. Delphine fostered him herself. The first week, he stayed mostly in the corner of the living room. He ate, he drank, he slept a lot. When she moved too quickly, he flinched. When she raised her voice on the phone, he went to his corner and curled up small. She started sitting on the floor near him in the evenings. Not touching, not talking much, just being there. By the end of the second week, he had moved his sleeping spot from the corner to 3 feet closer to the couch. By week 3, he was on the couch. If you've been watching Rousseau's story and feeling something shift in your chest, you're not alone. If this is the kind of story that stays with you, please consider subscribing. This channel exists for dogs like Rousseau, the ones who never got a fair read. Hitting like takes 2 seconds and helps more people find these stories. The turning point didn't look like a movie moment. It was a Tuesday night, 3 weeks in. Delphine had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on low. She woke up sometime past midnight to find Russo curled against her legs, not on the far end of the couch, not keeping his distance, right up against her, his chin resting on her knee. He was asleep. She didn't move. She just looked at him in the blue light of the TV and thought about the sign, about the 3 days he had spent alone in that lot, about every person who had read those words and walked away, about how close he had come to simply being forgotten. He exhaled slowly in his sleep. His paw twitched. Somewhere in there, something had decided she was safe.
Now, more than just feeling the scene, it's worth understanding what it reveals.
That moment on the couch wasn't just sweet. It was behavioral evidence of a neurological shift. Dogs that have been through chronic stress or abandonment often experience something called trust latency. The nervous system stays on alert even when the environment becomes safe, because safety has not been consistent enough to believe in. What Russo showed in those 3 weeks wasn't stubbornness or damage beyond repair. It was a system slowly recalibrating. Delphine's consistency, her presence without pressure, her patience without performance, gave his nervous system something it hadn't had in a long time: proof.
What looks like hesitation is actually communication. Understanding the dog changes everything.
The moment we understand that a dog's silence is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of too much, everything changes. Russo wasn't quiet because he didn't care. He was quiet because caring had cost him too much before. That distinction matters. It changes how we approach, how we wait, how we read what's in front of us. Delphine didn't save Russo because she was fearless. She saved him because she was patient enough to let him be afraid. There's a version of this story where no one stops, where Delphine takes the highway home that Thursday, and the lot stays quiet, and Russo keeps waiting until the waiting becomes something no one wants to think about. That version exists too. It exists in the towns where no one takes the long way home. Russo was adopted 11 weeks after Delphine pulled over in that gravel lot. His new family, a couple in their early 40s, no kids, a house with a yard that backed up to woods, had fostered before and understood that some dogs arrive already carrying things. They named him Russo, kept it, said it suited him. He sleeps by the back door now, watches the tree line. On weekends, they walk the trail behind the house, and he moves close to them, not ahead, not behind, right alongside, like he's not willing to let the distance get too big. He still flinches sometimes. Loud sounds, sudden movements. Some things stay. But he also runs in the yard now. He brings things. He leans into hands. He does that full body shake in the mornings like he's greeting the day instead of bracing for it. The sign said he bites. Nobody checked. One person did, and that was the whole difference. Not training, not a program, not a perfect plan. Just one person who decided the sign wasn't the whole story. Russo knew, even if he couldn't say it. That's why he put his chin on her knee. That's why he stayed. What do you think was going through Russo's mind that first moment Delphine sat down on the gravel and didn't move? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know how you read him.